welcome everyone who's watching this today and joining us. This is our very first LinkedIn Live. It's called Boundaryless Leadership. And the reason why is because actually, as Mitchke Morgan Worldwide, first we have a podcast called Boundaryless Leadership. And where that comes from is that we have a global intercultural leadership framework called Boundaryless Leadership. So we're just doubling down, or you can say we're not that creative. We just decided to stick with the Boundaryless Leadership until no one can forget about us. But anyhow, I'm Nozomi Morgan. Thank you for being here. I'm the founder and CEO of Mitchke Morgan Worldwide, my company that I founded in 2012. It's been a minute. Our company develops leaders and teams that can work effectively beyond I can't even say it, global borders and cultural barriers. And we work with, these global companies and organizations like nonprofits, higher education organizations, and we help their leaders and teams to really make progress and impact in a positive way in today's extremely fast-paced and extremely competitive, chaotic world that we live in. And I have my amazing colleague who is the lead for our amazing coaching team that we have. I have Dr. Tim Jansa. So hi, Tim.
Hi, Nozomi. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today, and just wanted to say you're doing just amazing work, and I'm so blessed to be part of it, and to count you as my friend and collaborator to get down in the weeds and to build the next generation of global leaders. So I'm super excited about it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a professional certified executive coach, consultant, and I specialize in leadership and organizational development, primarily in higher education, but also in the nonprofit sector, basically whatever comes my way. And as I mentioned, I'm really fortunate and blessed to count Nozomi as a friend, and now to be part of this wonderful initiative, so we can just bring our wisdom and Nozomi's wonderful framework to a greater audience.
Oh, well, thank you, Tim. Um, I mean, the honor and pleasure is really mine. I'm so grateful that we're working together and we have a friendship as well. So let's dive in. So today and going forward. So again, for all of you and some of you who just joined, this is our very first LinkedIn Live. So this LinkedIn Live, and we plan to do the Boundaries Leadership LinkedIn Live roughly once a month. And I say roughly because, like I said, it's the first one and we're trying to figure this out a little bit. But we want to go deep into what is boundaryless leadership. And let me actually hand over to Tim because I know you have something fun planned for us to talk
Well,
about.
yeah, I mean, I can't wait to actually really dig into the topic today and then in all upcoming discussions. So one thing we wanted to do, just to kind of start with something what Nozomi just mentioned, a little bit of fun and lighthearted, is to have a little check-in, right? Before things become too thought-provoking and informative and everything. And so with a little check-in, there's a little check-in generator, and just wanted to ask you a question, Nozomi.
Oh, okay.
See what you think, and then I'm going to give you my answer to that. So,
Okay.
if you could add any superpower to your amazing abilities, what would you choose and why?
Oh, can you ask that question again? That was a big one.
Sure. So, if you could add any kind of superpower to what you already have, what would you choose? What would that be, and why would it be
Oh, what I already have. Okay. Um, Not to sound creepy, but if I could actually read people's mind,
that?
that would be amazing if I had that superpower because and is it okay if I share why?
Yeah, sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
So the reason is because and this comes from my own experience and why I started this company and also what I see working with the clients. So the reason why is because I grew up being a third cultural kid. I was born and raised in Japan, but for the first 8 years of my life, I actually lived in the US. So, and then I went back to Japan when I was 8. And I found myself, even if I understood the language, there was a lot of times I really didn't understand what people were thinking or what was going on. So I kind of naturally self-trained myself to be really observant. That doesn't mean I truly, 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 obviously, I could not read, I cannot still read anyone's minds. So I felt like I was always living in a space of trying to guess what's going on
Hmm.
constantly.
Hmm.
And sometimes the guess is right, and sometimes it's really off. And I finally realized that when I was in college, when I had a friend, truly a friend that I really close to, and he was walking, you know, down the hallway, and I said good morning, and he basically ignored me and just kept on walking. And I felt very hurt because he was a friend. And then later I realized, like, oh, maybe he was just so into, what he was reading or thinking, that he didn't even notice me. Because of course this is college, the hallways are really crowded, and he might have just totally not see me. And for those watching this, you can't tell, but I'm very short, so it's really easy that anyone could just not see me because I could blend in, in the crowd. So that was a huge aha for me.
Hmm.
And I see that even in our clients. So we work with, intercultural global leaders and really helping them to connect to people, um, who do not share the same, like, cultural background or value systems or communication styles, all of that, right? Generation difference, cultural difference, language difference. And what I see a lot of times, a problem, the root of the problem is that they assume that people think the same way or think that it's common sense.
Yeah.
So again, that's where it comes from. If I could have add a superpower, if I can get something, that would be, yeah, ability I would love to have. But then if that was possible, maybe we would not have our company anymore. So maybe that's not good to have that either.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always a lot of room for assumptions when you really don't know, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
when you're in that space. Well, I tell you what, mine actually, I think,
Yes. How about you?
aligns with this extremely well because so my superpower would be that, and I've thought about this a lot. Wouldn't it be great if no matter where you went and whom you encountered, you could always speak their language and have full language and intercultural proficiency with that and be able to switch like that. It'd be so amazing. There's that old saying in the language world saying if you speak to somebody in a language they know, you speak to their head. If you speak to somebody in their language, in their native language, you speak to their heart. And there's definitely some truth to that. And it would also, and I think this might be a cute little segue into our discussion today, is there is tremendous power in hearing everybody's true voice. And sometimes when there is a language in between that is not the native language for one person, or maybe even for both, something gets lost in translation, as the saying goes. And so just hearing people's true voices, I think, is such a powerful thing. And and again, the segue here would be drum roll. It kind of really aligns very well with boundaryless leadership, doesn't it, Nozomi?
It does. It's almost sounds like you planned this, Tim.
Yeah. No, no, no. This was completely unintentional. But since we're already on the topic now, Nozomi, so for somebody who isn't familiar with boundaryless leadership, how would you describe what it is in a few words, just kind of uh, quickly, and how did you even come up with this framework in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just start with what boundaries leadership, or who boundaries leaders are.
Mm,
So we truly believe in this world where we're so interconnected. Even if you don't think you're connected, actually we are, right? Something that I do indirectly impacts someone else in this world. And something that US does as a country impacts other countries in the world, which means it impacts the people in that world. So, I started as saying as an individual, but the truth is, each culture, each country is a collective of individuals. So the truth is, we're all interconnected. And with that said, there is so much overwhelm, chaos, um, advancement, like all of these things in today's world. And we are moving forward in a speed that none of us have
Mhm.
experienced in the past certain generations.
Yeah.
Um, and with that, it's really difficult for anyone to have any single person to have a perfect answer or perfect knowledge. In the past, a lot of times, and we work with, organizations that have a lot of knowledge, wisdom within the organization. But the challenge in the past, there, if let's say there was executive, uh, a leader executive in the organization, typically they have a lot of experience in that role, so they could say, "Hey, this is how we do things because that's how we did it before, and it worked well." Today's world, a lot of the challenges, like this was really apparent during COVID, is that
Mhm.
a lot of the challenges are something none of us have faced
Mhm.
before. So, from that background, we really think that today leaders, what is needed is to be agile, to be adaptable, and really have the ability to unlock what we call diverse intelligence, because there's not one person who knows it all anymore. So we truly believe that the world is calling for who we call boundaryless leaders, and these leaders are people that can build trust, with, again, with diverse talent, or diverse people that they don't share the same cultural background. They are able to co-create innovative solutions and are inspiring their people around them, or their stakeholders to create or contribute in a positive way at
Mhm.
speed and scale.
Mhm.
So, uh, in the boundaries leadership framework, there are 3 C's. And the first C is capacity. And I'll just go around. And the second C is collective wisdom. And the third C is co creation. And the reason why capacity comes first is because throughout the work that we've been doing with all these organizations, what I have found is that, and I started out with, a lot of us, there's so much on our plate, so much going on. And even if you have the so-called skills and good intentions, a lot of us are just so um overwhelmed with so much on our plate that we don't have enough capacity to really do the good that we want to do, or be that leader that we want to be. So capacity comes first in our framework, and then collective wisdom comes. That's where the leaders are able to see the strengths and the gifts that each of the people around them brings to the table. And co-creation is as it sounds. It's really, how do you bring all these expertise, these strengths, these gifts, this unique ability that people have, and how can you create something that um, is contributes to the society, or to the
Mhm.
community, to the world.
Mhm.
So that, I try to make it as short as possible, but that's really, as you know, I'm long-winded. But that's what the 3 C's are, and that's what the boundaries leadership framework is.
There's tremendous depth to this, and you mentioned diverse intelligence. I mean, this is a term that really directly ties to collective wisdom, because you want to bring everybody's voices in. And one thing I was really struck by what you just said is you said no one leader knows it all, and this, I think, is the big dividing line between, let's say, traditional concepts of leadership and more contemporary concepts of leadership. Where in the past, leadership is, it's tied to a position, it's tied to your title, it's tied to your to the power you have within the organization, and automatically you are a leader. And I always say, no, you're a manager, you're a supervisor, you have somebody who have power over other people. That doesn't make you a leader. And so one of the things that goes hand in hand with a lot of these kind of old traditional conceptions of leadership is that, well, I'm the leader, I must have all the answers. And of course, that's no longer true. I think nowadays, as a leader, you if you think you have all the answers, you are already kind of on a very, very shaky footing because as you mentioned, Nozomi, there's all this interconnectedness, whether it's national, regional, within your group of friends or societies and work. I mean, everything is really what I like to call like a living, breathing, complex adaptive system. And those things change all the time. And you, because of the complexity, you can't possibly have all the answers. And I think leaders today who are aware of this complexity, who are aware of the fact that they're working with people who, in and of themselves, are highly complex beings, that there's a lot going on that they don't understand. So owning to that, I think, is super powerful. Um, and so if you tap into this, that's where what you mentioned, the capacity comes in. Will you really build capacity in yourself, in others, in teams by drawing on this on collective wisdom and you co-create? And so I'm very, very much intrigued by those. And one thing that you actually addressed already, I was always thought, is there a hierarchy to these three C's? But you said, yeah, capacity comes first. And of course, being a little bit of an academic, I said, well, let me push back there, because if you can't build capacity, well, without first kind of tapping into collective wisdom, without creating the environment where you allow people to co-create, right? Would you say that?
Yeah, so I would say there's a hierarchy and there's not a hierarchy.
Mm,
So the reason why they are, I wish I could show a visual, and I think in the future we'll be able to, but today not yet. But the three are connected like a circle, so like rings. So three rings. So from that perspective, they are absolutely equal. And the reason why I said it comes first is because actually, if so, with boundaries leadership, it applies to leader as an individual, applies to leaders as
mhm,
a team, and also applies to the whole organization.
mhm,
Because the truth is, organization is a collective of teams, which teams are a collective of individuals. So that's how. So each depending on the level, there's boundaries leadership applies to each of those different levels. Um, so knowing that, I'm just going to use leader as an individual as this example, because I think for people who are watching or listening to this, it's easier to apply it to yourself. Is that the capacity, leadership capacity, is really about your inner work as a leader. So the thing is, what's happening in there's so we define leadership not as your title. As you can see with boundaries leadership, we did not mention any kind of title to this. So it's not like you are a manager and then you're a leader, or it's not like you're executive and you're a leader.
mhm.
Really, leadership can happen at any level and at every level. So leadership, as we define it, is actually influence that you
Yeah.
have or what you create. And what we have found is a lot of people do not have that self-awareness that they have influence over others. So an example that from my own days in corporate was that I was a manager of a team and I was completely burnt out. It was a very high stress, and I traveled a lot in that role. And one day, one of my coworkers on my team, he came and said, "Hi, Nozomi," and in my mind, I think I thought I said good morning or hi, but what came out was like a grunt. I'm like, basically, I didn't. I remember I didn't even turn around and say like eye to eye, say good morning. Um, that so then he thought I was upset at him. So
Mhm.
that ruined his day, starting of the day. And he was a mature person. So I'm so grateful. If it wasn't for that, if it's someone else, it could have been he just took that and said, "Oh, Nozomi doesn't like me," or what it could
Mhm.
have going back to the assumption, right? But he was mature enough to say, "Hey, Nozomi, are you upset at me?" And then that's when it was like aha moment, like, no, I'm not. I'm just so overwhelmed myself. So that's the influence. A lot of times, what we do, we don't realize it influence others. And so, but also the external influence is us as well. So with this person, my attitude or behavior influence his day as
Mm.
well. So it's a cycle. Again, it's a cycle. We influence others, and the others or the outside environment influences us. So, but we can't control the outside. What we can control is our inside. So, in order to create more positive influence, when I say positive, I'm not saying like a cheerleader, like yay, yay, happy all the time, but positive meaning forward or life giving. Sometimes it's hard, right? Sometimes it's difficult, but still like that
Yeah.
forward, positive, life giving influence, the place you really want to start with is inside. And that's the capacity that we create. So you can do it as a leader, as an individual, as a team, create more flow, as an organization as well. A lot of the change management that goes on is about how can
Mhm.
we create a better organization. That also is speaking to the capacity, like how can we create more capacity. So going back to your question about hierarchy, it's not like there is a hierarchy that you have to do it this way. They all happen all at once. But that's the place that if we could start with, um, as an entry port, if we can create more capacity, the other ones, how do you say it? It will be greased and it will
Yeah.
do better.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can see that, and thank you for explaining that. It's so, you touched on this idea of influence that we have over others, especially the impact, not just the influence, but really the impact of a leader, and that's good or bad, right? I mean, if you're aware, or let's say you're not aware of your impact, you could have a situation like the one you described, where somebody just thinks, "Oh my gosh, she looked at me funny, she didn't look at me at all, and oh my god, she's going to be mad at me, or there's something going on," because again, there's all this space for assumptions when the environment is ambiguous, and I mean that's pretty much like most environments these days. So depending on how you act as a leader, how you model certain behaviors and so forth, it will percolate through the system. It will affect the people around you and how they interact with each other, how they interact with you. So if you're aware of that as a leader, you're building tremendous capacity, as you mentioned, in yourself, but also in your team to say, okay, if I say something in a certain way, or if I use certain words, or if I act in a certain way, this will have tremendous impact potentially on those around me. And that is something where I think leadership capacity and also training, the kind of training that uh, organizations like ours provide, I think is extremely valuable. And I wanted to, if that's okay, I wanted to kind of touch on hierarchies briefly from a slightly different angle. So we talked about hierarchies within the three C's. I was also thinking about how hierarchies can sometimes work against um, the premises of what we talk about boundaryless contemporary leadership. So I mentioned earlier, and Nozomi, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, is higher education, right? And when you look at a university, people always think, oh, it's such an egalitarian and flat hierarchies. Like, no, no, no. These are some of the most hierarchical organizations out there, and you have all these functional silos, you have all these disciplinary silos, all these things, and that really works against it. And then depending on what your title is and so forth. And this is something that I'm fascinated by, but also aggravated by to an extent. So it's fascinating to kind of see how some of those organizational structures and all very ossified structures sometimes can really work against what we're trying to accomplish as part of capacity building, about part of co-creation, about activating collective wisdom. And I think that's something that we will definitely explore in future episodes.
Yes, absolutely. And I know, Tim, this is your passion area, and you have so much wisdom and expertise in really helping and guiding the higher education, the institutions, or organizations that have a lot of so much potential, and
You said it.
some, right, and then
Hmm.
but are really weighed with carrying so much weight, I will not say waste because that sounds negative, but a lot of weight
Yeah.
that if they could let go of, they can do so much more. And my background's not in academia, but I would say I have a lot of passion, and leads to the work that we do with really supporting the future generation. And higher education is exactly that's what you do, right? You're really feeding is not the word I'm looking for, but nurturing
Hmm.
and growing these future generation um, gems that will really carry our world forward. So I think there's a lot of, so from that standpoint, there's so much responsibility.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I know it's so important to you. And a lot of our in Michigan Morgan Worldwide, we have amazing team of experts with just mind-blowing backgrounds in higher ed. So that's something I see from all of you, all of us, that really are passionate about that future generation. How can we support them? How can we support the organizations that are responsible of helping these young souls, young minds
Yeah.
to really blossom and do what they were here to do on this world. So I'm really excited about that, diving into that. And I know we're at time. So shall we talk about what's next for us?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, I mean, I think anybody who's been watching and listening, and I hope you had some insights during this, but you can tell that there's so much to unpack here. And of course, lucky for you, this is just the very first of a series of sessions. So we're going to have our first, I guess, official, real discussion, even though this was a really pretty dang real discussion already to me. That's when we're going to kind of recap a little bit what we did today and and start digging deeper and what it all means and what it means for us as leaders, as people who train leaders, for us as organizational leaders, how we can apply a lot of these concepts to our organizations. It's super exciting stuff, and I certainly hope you will tune in and watch and listen to us again.
Thank you, Tim, for being such a great partner in this LinkedIn Live and in the journey of boundaryless leadership, and for everyone who's out there listening to this, watching this. Really excited to see you.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day.
And for weekend, happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there who celebrates, and see
Yeah.
you then.
Yeah. See you then. Bye.